Sprint Retrospective. This is the last event of the sprint. It concludes the sprint. It goes right after the sprint review. And right after the sprint retrospective, the next sprint starts, with the next sprint planning initiating it, with no gaps in between the sprints. The purpose of the sprint retrospective is to plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. The Scrum team discusses what went well during the sprint, what problems it encountered, and how those problems were or were not solved. The Scrum team inspects how the last sprint went with regards to individuals, interactions, processes, tools, and their definition of done. By the way, do these 4 elements remind you of something? If you recall the first line of the Manifesto for Agile software development, you are right. Inspected elements often vary with the domain of work. The Scrum team identifies assumptions that led them astray and explores their origins. The Scrum team identifies the most helpful changes to improve its effectiveness. The most impactful improvements are addressed as soon as possible. They may even be added to the sprint backlog for the next sprint. This is recommended, but not mandatory. How exactly does the Scrum team conduct their sprint retrospective? They can select whatever structure and techniques they want to use, as long as their sprint retrospective focuses on ways to increase quality and effectiveness, and produces some actionable improvements for the next sprint. Optimally, the sprint retrospective is held at the same time and the same place to reduce complexity. It is time-boxed to a maximum of 3 hours for a 1-month sprint. For shorter sprints, the event is usually shorter. Scrum does not say anything about whether for sprints lasting less than 1 month, the maximum duration of the event should be proportionally less. There is no such thing as no more than 1.5 hours is required for a 2-week sprint. The Scrum Master serves the Scrum team by causing the removal of impediments to the Scrum team's progress. Scrum Masters cause the removal, but don't necessarily remove the impediments on their own. The Scrum Master ensures that the event takes place, is positive, productive, and kept within the time box. Is this the only moment the Scrum team can make adaptations of their way of working? Of course no, it's not. The Scrum team is expected to adapt the moment it learns anything new through inspection, during or after the daily Scrum, or any time throughout the sprint. Nevertheless, a retrospective is a formal opportunity to inspect and adapt the way they work, at least once per sprint. Such an opportunity to make changes is another example of how self-management and empowerment work. Based on the information discussed, let's fill out the checklist for an effective meeting. You can take a screenshot of this frame. I'll wait for another 10 seconds. Or you can download a PDF with this table by the link in the description for the lesson. But from an effective time management perspective, it's better to perform small tasks immediately. Well, have you taken a screenshot? Anyway, let's move on. For those who have already answered the test questions on this event, here is a checklist of everything that needs to be prepared before the event, that needs to be done during the event, and what needs to be received as an output from the event.